Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Grit and Greatness here on Contemporary Business. Now, this is a space where we sit down with real people building real things. No glossy theory, no overnight success myths, just honest conversation about the work, the courage, and the grit behind people's decisions. So, this evening's discussion is not really about a business, but I suppose about a life decision. And with that life decision, obviously comes the issue of how people survive. When they move out of their comfort zone, when they move to a new place, as is the case in this particular interview, the question is, what do you have to do to survive, to put bread on the table besides everything else, socially, psychologically, interpersonally? So I'm joined by someone whose journey I am intrigued about, and that's Natalie Joel. And I've known Natalie for a while now. In fact, I drank her coffee for a long time when she owned a business called Josie Blue with her family. This is a family of husband and wife who decided it's time to make Aliyah, to immigrate to Israel from South Africa noch. Some may say at the least opportune time possible, although I would imagine that there's never an opportune time. Natalie, it's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Would you agree that you possibly chose the most misopportune time to pick up and to move from South Africa to Israel?
Actually, I think the opposite. I think the opposite. It was the right time. It was actually the right time. It worked out amazing. It was just right.
What caused you to want to go?
Well, since I've known my husband in the 70s, he's always said, let's go and live in Israel. We came, we saw the country, we loved it, but it just never worked out. He was studying, I was studying, we had children. It just didn't go. And then last year, about 18 months ago, about April, one of my daughters said to us, she's got two special needs children, and she found out that the education system and the opportunities in Israel are phenomenal, which they actually are. We found out they are unbelievable. And she said she's going to live in Israel. So Howard and I thought, you know what? Maybe it's time that we also went to live in Israel. So we did our application and we applied, and it was like we were being pushed from behind. It was like tailwinds pushing us towards it. It happened so fast. We decided about April and we came to July. We decided to come in July to do a look-see to see exactly what we were coming to, if we were doing the right decision, because we hadn't been for quite a few years. And coming on holiday to a place is very different to going to live in a place.
Sure.
When you're in holiday mode, you go out for coffee all the time, you go out to eat all the time, you're basically jolling around all the time. But when you're going to live in a country, things are different. So we came to have a look, and just before we came to have a look, we were told that our application to come and live in Israel had already been approved, which was about 3, 4 months. It was incredibly fast. So we said, hey, hang back, just wait. We need our passport. We need to go to Israel to have a look. And we just loved it. People were overwhelmingly kind to us. They opened their homes to us. They were just couldn't do enough for us. And we thought, this is it. It feels so right.
But what
And
what
then
what 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 I'm amazed at is that you chose to move from South Africa, which I suppose one could say is a relatively stable environment, to a war zone.
you know, that's one of the things we actually decided that maybe it's time to show that Am Yisrael Chai, we feel that we're part of it. And even though there's a war on, we need to show that we are for the people. And if it's a time to go, then maybe with my daughter going, it's a time for us to go too, that it's part of us, and we need to just make that decision to go.
Was there
I think
anything
one
about
thing,
was there anything about South Africa that was in fact pushing you away at the time you
no,
made your decision?
no, we went to, we didn't run from. So when people say ex-South Africans, I actually get very angry because I'm not an ex, I'm a South African. I feel very much part of the Jewish community in South Africa. It's a beautiful community, but we're part of Israel as well. part of the Israel community, and it's lovely. And I get very upset when anybody in the world who people go and live anywhere in the world from South Africa and they slam it because we are who we are from our upbringing. And I feel that what my generation, got from South Africa, we are very blessed. We really got a lot. So I don't feel that we ran from, we went to. So I don't know if you understand the nuances. We don't have bad feelings towards South Africa. We've got good feelings.
Absolutely. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Take me through that first week of actually emigrating to Israel.
Okay.
What surprised you? What hit you? And what moments made you think, okay, I can do this, or what have I done?
So we decided on a little town. It's not a little town. It's actually a city. It's one of the newest cities in Israel. It's called Harish. And we found out about it. We had a few boxes to tick, and it filled in. It was every single one. We wanted an Anglo community. We wanted a religious, our way of living life type of people. We wanted people our age, and we also wanted a community that was like Johannesburg, where there's everybody. Everybody lives together in peace, and that's what we wanted. And that's what Harish is like. So anyway, we contacted people in Harish, the municipality, and they were amazing. They had temporary accommodation we could stay in until our place was ready for us. And it was beautiful. We overlooked the mountains. And the first day we were walking around, and somebody stopped walking to, somebody, a stranger came up to us and just said hello. It was amazing. Just suddenly thought about this. You say, what's the thing? It was just, maybe we looked, you knew. So he came up to us and said, hello, welcome. I'll tell you what did surprise me
Yes.
was I went to the supermarket and I asked for cucumbers. And the cucumbers here are not the English cucumbers we've got in South Africa. They're like little tiny things. I said, where are the cucumbers? And they said, they're the I said, no, those are the baby marrows. Because here the baby marrows are big and the cucumbers are small. So that was a weird thing. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but now I'm used to cucumbers being tiny little things and baby marrows being teenage marrows, not baby marrows.
So, Natalie, before I talk about the business side of your decision, in other words, how were you going to survive there in Israel? I want to talk just very briefly about something you did mention earlier, and that's about identity, because identity is complicated. And I think a lot of people who do immigrate to Australia and all over the world very often turn, as you've mentioned, turn on their identity as a South African to justify their decision. So identity is complicated. Do you have to feel more Israeli than South African in your mind to make this thing work for you?
Actually, no, no. Um, because Israel is made up of so many immigrants, everybody everybody knows that you're from somewhere else, and people are fine. You start talking to people in the street or the supermarkets or wherever, and as you open your mouth to say hello, excuse me, in Hebrew, they'll answer you in English because they can hear that thick accent that it's not Israeli, it's not
Mm.
Hebrew, and they want to help you. I say, no, 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 I want to speak Hebrew, I want to practice. So that's the thing that they accept the different countries coming here. We've got a huge Russian community in Harish, but a huge Spanish, Portuguese, Ethiopian, and everybody gets on and everybody breaks their teeth speaking to each other. And it's fine. We don't feel foreigners in a strange land. We feel we all here growing together.
Lately, I've always found Israel to be one of the most expensive countries in the world, certainly from my perspective, possibly as a tourist rather than as a local. But as a tourist, I've certainly found it to be one of the most expensive. In fact, I found it to be more expensive in some respects than London even. How, what did you have to do to position yourself, leaving South Africa, that you'd be financially secure in Israel?
Well, my husband has a chartered accountancy practice in South Africa, which our children have taken over. And he's continued to work. Every day he jokes he goes to Johannesburg. He was on his computer and he works as an accountant in the South African in the business. So that's how he continues with that. I have studied to become a realtor in Israel. I used to be one many years ago in South Africa, and I'm one here as well. And that's what we do. But the rand is very weak compared to the Israeli shekel, and things are a lot more expensive here than in South Africa. But if you're over 67, they've got a new rule just for us from since April. If you're over 67, you have free transport, free public transport. So you can go anywhere in Israel on bus, train, light rail, and it's free.
And what about medical?
Medical is also, you have to join a medical aid. They call it something else here, but it's basically the same thing. It's so much cheaper than South Africa, so much cheaper. They've got a building in our little city, which has got it's got their four main medical aids, and we belong to the one, and you can get a top up, which we have taken out. And so you go visit the doctor, it's free. Have the dentist, the checkup is free. You just pay for x-rays. South Africa, my medical aid, I had to pay for the doctor, I had to pay for the dentist, I had to pay for everything. Here, a lot of things are covered under the medical aid. So that is a big, big saving, that the price of the medical aid is a lot cheaper. And the facilities that you get from them is amazing, absolutely credible.
And in terms of a leg up, so you immigrate to Australia, you're immigrating to the States or to the UK. When you get there, you literally are on your own. There is no assistance. But Israel's different in that respect, isn't it?
Very much, very, very much. Especially for South Africans who go and live in Israel, there is a organization that helps South Africans and Australians if you need the help to help you around. There are people who've helped because a lot of bureaucratic stuff, they will come and they will help you do the registrations and everything. At the airport, they register you straight away. You get your ID number and you get a bit of help financially to get you going. And it's different. You immediately become a citizen, which is amazing because you don't have to wait. Say, I'm not a citizen, I'm not entitled to any right. You're entitled to everything immediately, which is phenomenal. Phenomenal. There is a lot of support. There's a lot of people who are willing to help. There are a lot of organizations available to help people who need help.
So you'd certainly recommend it to people over the age of 67, but what do you think about young people who qualified people who are faced with a scenario where possibly they're feeling a little bit of a push, particularly young white South Africans, where they're feeling a push, where they're feeling an employment crisis in their minds, and the reality of knowing that they are relatively speaking, lower down on the rung in terms of employment, in terms of opportunity. What would you be saying to people like that?
Investigate, follow up. There are so many opportunities available in Israel. There's virtually no unemployment. The unemployment ratio is very, very low. And if people want to work, they can find jobs in anything. And no one is looked down for doing anything. You know, you can be a bus driver, you can be a shelf packer. We're all people, and everybody's accepted. So there are a lot of places you can contact to see about jobs that you can find out. And if they're thinking of leaving, don't leave it. It's good to go when you're still young, when you haven't set up your families, when the children are still small.
Is there a little bit or an issue with class consciousness in Israel? Because I've often heard it said that to survive in Israel, you have to be very wealthy, and there is a massive schism between the very wealthy and the people just making do. Do you notice any of that?
No, we live in a little, as I mentioned earlier, a little city called Harish. And the nice thing about Harish, it reminds me of Glen Hazel, where everybody gets on. Nobody knows, no, nobody dresses kugly, nobody drives around with their Rolls Royce and their things. Majority of people here who are immigrants from South Africa don't have cars because at five times the five shekels to the rand, it's impossible. and people rent, and nobody says, "Ah, can you rent? Why aren't you owning it?" No, no, it's not at all like that. I can't tell you about Tel Aviv, Renana, Netanya. I don't know what goes on there. But in my area, we're all very laid back, and nobody knows the financial situation of anybody else because we all look the same, we all dress the same. No one walks around with fancy jewelry dripping off them and fancy hairdos and that type of thing. So this in this city, there's no class schism at all.
So people generally romanticize about Israel or they demonize it. It's not so much about whether you're a Jew or not a Jew, but it's about whether you're a Zionist or not a Zionist. And often people are anti-Zionist without ever setting foot in Israel, which, as we know, is a major problem at this moment in time in terms of social media. But when you went to Israel, what assumptions did you have about Israel? And have they been shattered? Have they been proven true? In terms of that pull you were feeling, were there a certain number of misgivings as you got on that plane and as you landed in Israel?
I was very, very nervous before we came because I'm not good with change, but I battled on. But I was, you always hear negative things. Israelis are this and that, and they like that. What's that thing? The cactus, hard on the outside, soft inside. We have found, without exception, people have bent over backwards to be nice to us. We have not found anybody who's nasty. We have found people so willing to give, to help across the board, across the board. And it's just amazing. I mean, I can be walking down the street and a bus will drive past me and she'll slow down, this lady who drives the bus, and wave at me. That's how people are
So you've been
on
there
this
for a year
day.
now.
Yeah.
Have you found your community there? Are you still
Yes,
looking? Do you
yes.
think you'll
No,
remain in Harish?
yes. There's a very nice Anglo Dutty community, and also there's a very nice Anglo community per se. So we've got a shul that's British American and South African, which is very much like a Glen Hazel shul. And I've also got made a lot of friends who are not part of the shul, but there's coffee meetings, there's coffee dates, there's get-togethers, there's WhatsApp groups for everything. So it's very comfortable, very, very comfortable in Harish.
So, Natalie, and finally, this is a question I ask all of my guests. If you could speak to your 17-year-old self, what would you say about courage, about work, about choosing the path you've chosen in terms of preparing themselves for possibly emigrating to a place like Israel?
Well, I think I would have been more serious about learning Hebrew. I'm at Alpine at the moment. We're over 60s class. And it's lovely. It's lovely. We all like one big unit now, the Russians, Spanish, Portuguese, French, we're all one unit. But I think learning a language is very important. And also, if you are thinking of emigrating, it's important to see if your job is transferable to another country. And if it's not, look around and see what you are good at as well, that you can make sure that you can take it to your future home.
So you've managed to transport the skill of selling property and the career of selling property into a place like Israel. That's very much a personality-based activity. Do you
Yeah.
think that from a jobs perspective, and you've said there's virtually no unemployment in Israel, but do you think that from a jobs perspective, the level of job seniority, the level of job entry, the level of progress that we're comfortable with in South Africa is something that is available in Israel, or in fact, is the job market different?
I don't know so much of the job market is different. I've got a family member who's recently married. She came to Israel. She works in a creche and she loves it. She worked in a nursery school in South Africa and she got a job offer to work in a creche in Israel. So she's managed to transfer and she's in her 20s. She's a lot younger than me. She's like starting off. So she's managed to succeed. So I think the whole bottom line is mindset.
Mm.
If your mindset is positive, then I think you can make your life anywhere in the world. If your mindset is negative, everything's so bad and I can't cope and blah blah blah, you'll never get anywhere. That's my feeling.
You know, I've heard it said that young couples who live in Israel find it very, very difficult to buy property. Is it truly that difficult? Certainly, it's difficult in London and New York and even South Africa these days, especially Cape Town. But is it equally as difficult in a place like Israel to actually buy property, to afford to pay on a monthly basis your bond?
It depends on what city you choose because, as you say, Cape Town, if you want to buy in Cape Town and you're 20 years old, you're not going to be able to afford it. So if you want to buy in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem, you probably won't afford it. But there are so many beautiful cities everywhere that if you really want to find somewhere, that you can find somewhere.
So, Natalie, thank you. What a powerful conversation. There's something refreshing about hearing the real story behind the person and the family, the highs that make it worth it, and the hard bits that shape you along the way. Now, I know our listeners are walking away with insight and with encouragement about their own journey. And certainly, what I'm not trying to do here is promote Aliyah. But the bottom line is, I think that there are many people that would consider, as Jewish people, that would consider the notion of going to live in Israel, and some of them who will make that final decision. So, dear listeners, if you've tuned in today and something resonated with you, share this episode with someone who needs it. And of course, follow this show so that you never miss a conversation. Natalie, thank you again for being here and for bringing your voice and honesty to grit and greatness here on Contemporary Business. And to everyone listening, keep building, keep experimenting, keep showing up for your future self. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Nat.